Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay.
What's new?
I'm very excited today.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I'm writing a review of Susan Rice's book.
I heard it's a good one.
Yeah, it's very good. It's called Tough Love,
Yeah.
and I got the permission to interview Tony Lake, who was Susan Rice's supervisor. Tony Lake was the undersecretary, was President Clinton's national security advisor.
Wow.
So I'm really excited. I'm calling him tomorrow.
That's awesome. Good for you. That's
Yeah,
that's
I'm
really
so
so
excited.
exciting.
I never expected it when I put in the request.
I wouldn't have either.
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't have. Like
No,
our
actually,
guest
what
tonight,
happened was
I didn't expect
what,
a
what
yes from
happened
Steve
was
Israel
I
joining
know
us. I was
his
expecting a
sister.
no.
I know his sister.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, she is a professor at Barnard and
Wow.
and a professor of English, and so she and I have we know each other very well. But
That's
I asked her, and she got me the intro.
that's so exciting. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hi,
That's
Lisa.
hi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I used the link that you had sent over for Steve, so now it says that I am Steve.
That's
so-
okay. Poor Vincent. It says that he's me every week, so we've gotten
Hello.
used to that.
Hi. I'm about to start a Zoom meeting.
I am
but
so excited he's joining us. I
tell you.
had honestly like
Do you know who
was so
Tony
excited to
is?
ask him, but I honestly never expected a yes. So
He was Clinton's
he's
national
retired. He's
security
paid his dues.
advisor,
You know, like
and he
Yep.
was also
why are there so many memes
Susan
popping up?
Rice's supervisor when Susan Rice was in.
That is now there's a third meme popping up. It must be Donovan. Or maybe nope, it's Vincent. Vincent's having a hard time logging in. So how are things? What's it like working for Steve Israel?
Things are good. We run, so he just launched an Institute of Politics at Cornell. So we're about a year old now. So that is what we do day to day, putting on and student interface and things like that. So things are definitely a little bit different now, but doing a ton of Zoom programming and inviting guests that way. So I don't anticipate any problems logging in here, but I can let you know if I hear of any trouble on his end.
Okay, perfect. I'm
Hello.
thrilled to have him. Our second guest was supposed to be Kimberly Jean-Pierre, who worked for him.
Yes. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we got a text message that the assembly is running late and has their vote coming up on the floor at 7:30.
So
Has to reschedule. I'm heartbroken, but she's a great woman. She's amazing. He trained her well.
we didn't overlap. I did work for the congressman a few years when he was still at the House, but we didn't overlap. I've seen her, a ton since and spoken to her. She's great, very nice.
She's the coolest person in Albany. I'm convinced. No one will tell me otherwise. I mean, she's young, she's dynamic, she's down to earth. She's awesome. Sorry for any yelling in the background. My children are home. It's true. COVID. It's great. But in all due honesty, I'm sure he has to be happy. He's not in DC right now. It
can't be easy to be in DC right now.
No, even what's going on lately with AOC, you can't keep any humanity, any decency, whether you're for her or against her. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Glad to see everybody starting to sign on. How are you, Vincent?
I am fantastic. I just spent about 15 minutes trying to get Zoom to work, which is about normal for me. So I ended up having 2 Zoom windows open and 2 me's pop up, both of which were named you.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
I was
just
saying,
working
why is there
about
so
as
many
well
of
as it
me?
normally does. It's working about as well as it normally does, but you know,
It's
good.
got to be a pretty big company by now, a lot bigger than it used to be. You'd think they'd give it some kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
like, overhaul and give it a boost, but apparently not.
What
Hi,
a novel
Lita,
idea.
how are you?
What a novel idea.
Welcome, Antonio.
How's it going?
Good, and you?
Pretty well. Just got out of class.
Awesome. Oh, here. Wow. So,
Here comes everyone.
hi, Peggy. Hi, Jennifer. Here he is. You're muted.
Hi, guys.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm well. It's so good to be with you.
We're so excited to have you. It's great. We were actually just talking to Natalie, and she was telling us what a great boss you are.
Now I see her. Hello, Natalie.
I was just telling her I was kind of heartbroken. Kimberly Jean-Pierre was supposed to be your guest meet today,
Oh,
but the assembly is running late. So
Yeah,
her last vote is at 7:30, and so she's gonna have to reschedule. But she was looking forward to seeing you. I think that helped me like get her to sign on. Was Steve's coming?
well, she's terrific, and she was a member of my congressional staff for several years. So I'm extraordinarily proud of her.
You should be. As I was saying, she's the coolest person in Albany.
Yeah.
Nobody really tops her.
Yeah, we need more of hers, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So how has life been retired and outside of DC?
You know, it's been busier than when I was in Congress, to be honest with you, but rewarding because I can pursue my creative interests. I wrote 2 novels. I'm working on my 3rd, which all my novels take place on Long Island. They've done very well, thank goodness, critically. And one is being made into developed for film. So I do that.
Wow.
But I also,
That's exciting.
well, thank you. I also, I talk to my former colleagues, as Natalie Ryan knows, several times a day. So I just got off the phone with Tammy Duckworth, and I was in Washington Sunday night. So I'm able to continue to engage in public policy and politics without having to beg people for money, which is just liberating.
I bet it is. That has to be awesome. I ran for office a lot smaller than yours. I ran for Islip Town Council, and that was like my least favorite part. It's
Isn't it
awful.
horrible? It's horrible. When was that, Leanne?
Just last year,
Okay.
I got I was not
Yeah.
nearly as good as fundraising as the other side. I got outspent by $520,000. So
Oh, my
I need
God.
to up my game.
Oh my, I'm sorry to hear that. It's rough.
Well, Islip's red, as you know, but I
Yeah.
grew up in Babylon, where life was a whole lot different under Schaefer and Malone. And
Right.
it was
Yeah.
good times.
Yeah.
Just trying to give everybody a minute to sign on.
Sure. No, take your time. I'm good.
I'm just really so giddy you're here. I never expected a yes, in all due honesty.
Really? Oh no. I'm happy.
Come
to do it.
on. You
The only
paid your
thing that-
dues. You did your time.
The only thing that could have prevented me from joining you would have been if the Mets were opening tonight. But evidently, you're very influential because they decided to open tomorrow instead of tonight.
Yes. And meanwhile, I'm a Yankees fan.
It was all us.
That's awesome. Just trying to get done
So
with
tell me, as we wait for people to fill up, tell me about the efforts of the group, what you've been up to.
the goal, since all politics is local, is to bring. I don't know how to mute that. Give me 1 second. Okay.
You gotta right click on their profile. Yeah.
The idea was to bring Joe's campaign local, because all politics is local, as well as,
Right.
rising tides lift all boats. So we really wanted to make sure we highlight our down ballot Dems, canvassing. I never thought I'd say it. I really miss it, but it's
Me
not a
too.
thing this go around.
Who said
So-
me too?
Jill
Jill
did.
said that.
Okay, Jill.
So
I can't be on video because I'm
Okay.
getting my hair colored.
Oh,
I can't fault you for that. I've been neglectful there, but nobody could see it. Um, so the thought process was, to just do our best to help everybody across the board, because from, Congress down, Joe's going to need blue to
that's
help
right.
him get things done, because we learned under Obama what happens when you lose the Senate. And
That's right.
so, and I wouldn't mind seeing a lot of senators go. I'd like to see the GOP raise their standards over there. But nonetheless, that was a hope. But Vincent, who is my partner in crime on this, he actually came up with the idea of creating a Facebook group. We honestly, I think between the two of us, thought it was just going to be the same political nerds we hang out with day after day, just commiserating in a new Facebook group. But it just exploded. So it's all right. How are we going to make the best of this and do our best to make a difference?
Right.
So.
And something I'm happy with is that there's in some areas of Suffolk, and this with Democrats really all over the country in more red areas, there's a certain sense of like learned helplessness. Like everyone, they see Trump flag, they see Trump signs, and they're like, oh, all my neighbors are Republican. I'm the only Democrat around here. And it's not true. And we don't know how many of our neighbors, agree with us. And with groups like this and meetings like this, we see that, we're not alone, and there's actually a lot of momentum for Democratic candidates and for Joe, and that when we get together and we work together, we can change the sort of the status quo of Republican victories around here.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations on what you're doing. It's so vitally necessary. Good job.
Well, thank you for being a part of it. Because
Sure.
without high visible people like you pitching in, it's really hard to get the lesser known candidates that are just getting their feet wet a chance, especially now. So it's really awesome that you're here. I really appreciate it.
Anything I can do, anytime, I'm in.
I'm going to hold you to that. And Natalie, you heard that.
Natalie, however, Natalie has the final say on these things, you should know. So it's easy for me to promise. Natalie's the bad cop in this bad cop relationship.
Oh, she seems too nice to be a bad cop. I promise I won't ask for anything too unreasonable. But if you got to contact the Schumer or Gillibrand, I could use help.
Sure, yeah, I can help with Schumer. Sure.
I would take that. I mean, I
I'm
can't think of.
honored. I see Adrienne Esposito is on. I'm honored by that. She's terrific.
She's
an
amazing
person and has made such an impact on Long Island.
She is our environmental warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Which reminds me, Adrienne, I need you to be a guest. If you can come on mute and tell me when you're free. I would love for you to tell us about the environmental impact.
Adrienne doesn't know this, and I don't know if she's listening, but she plays a role in my first novel, The Global War on Morris. I was watching her on News 12 one day, and she was talking about pesticides, and she had this line that I just thought was so wonderful that I remembered it. She said, Long Island, something to the effect of, Long Island is the only place on earth where we fight a war against dandelions. And I love that line, and I actually stole it from her, and I have a character say that in, I think it was my first novel, which again takes place on Long Island. So Adrienne, if you're listening, thank you for letting me plagiarize you.
Well, that's a big honor. That's pretty epic. Awesome. Oh, I hope she heard that. Oh, please unmute. Let us know you heard that, Adrienne.
Well, somebody can pass it along to her.
Oh, it's recording. She's still going to get a copy of this. Well, you want to start off, Vincent? Because it's 7:06.
Sure. So it's, as Leanne said, 7:06 or so. There's about 35, 40 of you here already, which I'm happy to see. So we're going to start off with some brief introductions from me and Leanne and from Donovan. Is Anthony here, Leanne?
I don't think so.
I think he's still running home from the Bronx. Okay, so we're gonna start off a little group introduction. Let's talk a little bit, and then we're gonna pass it over.
Vincent, we lost you. Okay. Go ahead.
Better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Sorry about that. Magic of no. So I don't know if you all heard on our second guest today, John.
Okay. Vincent, you need a plan B. I'll let her right now. Our second guest of the evening was Assemblywoman Kimberly Jean-Pierre. Unfortunately, Albany is running late, which I'm sure shocks no one here. So their last vote of the evening is scheduled for 7:30. So of course she puts her duty before campaign ability. So she will be staying and keeping her attention to her vote. She will be rescheduling to join us on another date. As Vincent was saying, quick intro. My name is Leanne Barty. I am a mom of 4. I am born and raised South Shore girl. I ran for office once myself. Unfortunately, I was unsuccessful, but you'll never know what the future holds. We created this group to help make a difference for Dems at home and abroad throughout the country. And I thank you all for being here and helping us make that difference.
Okay.
Vincent, come on. This is not the day for your mic not to work.
How you doing? Am I on?
I can hear you, Jacqueline. How are you?
I'm very good. I just want to praise you for all of your continuing efforts.
Oh, thank you so much.
No, really, I receive your emails. I hear you when you talk to me. You're doing a spectacular job.
Oh,
Now
thank you.
let's get it done in Islip Town.
Yeah.
Every little
All
bit
right.
counts.
Any
There we
better?
go. Yes. Go for
Okay,
it.
so apparently I have been tapping on the mute button on my phone with myself, so that was the problem. Great, typical technological issues. But yeah, so unfortunately, as Leanne said, we Assemblywoman Kimberly Dionne Assemblywoman John Pierre will be joining us at a later date. But my name is Vincent Bertuccio. Along with Leanne Barde, I co-founded and I now co-chair Suffolk for Biden. I'm a rising senior at Sayville High School. My first little bit of political involvement was a sporadic amount of phone banking for Hillary Clinton. And tragically, that election did not go the way we wanted. And we have been living with the consequences of it ever since. And that is a little bit of what has spurred me to action. Everything that we hold dear as a country, to some extent, has been under threat from this presidency. We have paramilitary troops in the streets of Portland disappearing protesters. That is something that you should not be hearing in the United States. Those are words that should not be coming out of the mouth of a newscaster here. That's not something we should be hearing about. It's horrifying. Our democracy is at threat. Our institutions are crumbling. And what particularly concerns me is our foreign policy has just been tragic. We are losing trust internationally. There was a poll, I think it was one of the large UK pollsters today, among British citizens. What countries do you trust to ally with the UK and advocate for your mutual interests? Every mainstream European and NATO allied country, we have New Zealand, Australia, France, all very high, typical 60, 70%. We trust them to be our friend. We trust them to be our ally. We trust them to work together on mutual interests. The U.S. has dropped into the 40s in the UK, and that's the United Kingdom. That is our special relationship, our closest international partner. And we have dropped down to just a plurality of British citizens trusting us. And that's because we have this gone on the international stage and trashed everything we used to believe in. We abandoned the Kurds. We don't maintain a sensible foreign policy. We have been, ecking away at NATO. It's horrifying, and it's going to be tough to rebuild. Now, that's just foreign policy. The problem with the Trump administration is that every piece of imaginable policy, you either have gross incompetence or active attacks. He's either damaging something unintentionally via an inability to run a government, or he is intentionally attacking rights. Foreign policy, it's a mix of attacks and just incompetence, or where you have LGBT rights, that's just pure attack. So it's tough. But what I'm happy about is that I'm not just a fan of Joe Biden because he's not Trump, although that is certainly a very strong motivating factor. But Joe Biden is a very competent, very respected, and very compassionate politician. He is the exact kind of person we need to rebuild because, unfortunately, as much as we have a lot of goals and that we hope to accomplish a lot of goals in terms of policy in this next administration, one of the biggest things we're going to be doing is just rebuilding. 4 years of fixing the damage that Trump has done. And it's probably going to run a lot deeper than we know because lots going on behind the scenes. And there's no one I trust more with rebuilding our democracy and rebuilding our government and rebuilding, most importantly, our stature in the world than Joe Biden. He has the experience. He has the skill. He's ready on day one, as Peggy Smith has said in the chat. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Donovan Curry to give a brief little introduction of himself.
Can I say something in the interim?
Sure, go ahead.
I traveled overseas in September and we went to many of the Baltic states. And being older, we would ask questions because we're political. And I just would like people to know that without exception, everyone from Estonia to Denmark to Finland to Sweden on down noted that they are afraid. They have Russian troops on their borders now, and they are scared. So I just I'm giving you a little bit of personal experience to underline what Vincent has just said.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
So my name is Donovan Curry. I'm a resident of the town of Islip. I've ran for local elections twice in the town unsuccessfully, but I will not let that deter me. Right now, we've found ourselves in a situation where the Trump administration has chosen to send paramilitary style forces into some towns. He's threatening to do the same to New York. I hope he doesn't do it. We cannot afford to have this man damage any further this grand experiment of democracy in the United States. It has done quite a bit of damage already. It's probably going to take more than 4 years to stitch us all back together. It has done irreparable harm with our friendships to the European countries, Africa, throughout the world, you name it.
True.
One of the things in our foreign policy that people look forward to is the ability for us to go out in the streets of the United States and demonstrate against our government without repercussions. That has been damaged. Major damage has been done. The next Secretary of State, when he or she goes overstate, they're going to have a tough time convincing anybody that, yes, America is this place where you can oppose your government and not get squished like you're in China. I don't know if any of you remember Tiananmen Square, where you saw tanks running over people. We had that in DC. We now have that in Portland.
Hello.
I could go on and on, but I'm going to turn this over to Congressman Steve Israel. I thank you so much, Steve, for taking the time out to speak to our group. You're an amazing congressman. I wish you were still there.
So do I.
Thank
He
you.
was
Here,
great.
here.
Yeah, he was great.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Donovan. Thank you so much for the introduction, and Leanne, thank you for the invitation. Vincent, thank you for your leadership and the comments that you made. You give me hope. I think you give a lot of us hope as a high school senior about the future, as difficult as the present is. I thought what I would do is just make 3 points and then open it up to conversation. The first point, I want to tell you a story about Joe Biden that not many people know. The second, I just want to talk about one of the issues that drew me to him. And then third, what I think President Trump is going to do to try and invalidate this election. So let me begin with this story. I had the privilege of representing many of you in the Congress for 16 years, and I was in the Democratic leadership of the House of Representatives as the chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this audiovisual aid, but this is one of my favorite photographs. Can you make that out at all?
Yes.
Okay, so you see it's a picture. I'm briefing the president and the vice president with Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer. And you can see the vice president kind of leaning forward, completely engaged, making a point with Pelosi. And I'm kind of just smiling in the back. I want to tell you about what happened after this was taken. It starts off a little bit sad. A few days before that meeting, my dad in Arizona, who passed away in 2012, got a diagnosis of lung cancer. And as the then leader Pelosi and I were driving to the White House for that meeting, I told her about the diagnosis, and I said, you know, I brought a get well card, and I'm going to ask the president to sign it for my dad. And she said, well, I can't imagine he's going to sign a card. I'm sure he'll want to do a personal note. But the thing is that the president, very busy man, and he wasn't known for, you know, sitting down and writing long notes and things like that. And I said, well, just in case, I'm just going to ask him to scroll a signature, because my dad loved Barack Obama and campaigned for him in Arizona, in a very conservative neighborhood. And after this very dynamic and high energy meeting ended, I approached the president as we were leaving, and I said, Mr. President, my dad just got a pretty tough diagnosis of lung cancer. He's such a fan. Would you mind signing this card? And I goofily presented this Hallmark get well card to the president. He just kind of scowled and said, I'm not going to sign your damn card. Come over here. And he sat behind the Resolute, which is the desk that presidents use in the Oval Office, and he pulled out his top drawer and he pulled out a piece of stationery, and he wrote a beautiful, beautiful note to my father. Vice President Biden was watching this, and as Leader Pelosi and I left with that note in my hand, the vice president said, Israel, come with me. He said, come into my office. And I'd been through that. Very often at these meetings, the vice president would take me aside, and we would go through the potential congressional victories and talk about the Democratic incumbents who were in trouble. And he would say, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And we'd go over maps. And I thought we were just going to do that again. And we walked into his office, and he closed the door. It was just the two of us. And he said, Steve, I want to call your mom. And I said, why? And he said, I've lived through grief. It's going to be harder for her than it will be for your dad. Your dad will reconcile himself to what's going to happen, but the burden will be on your mom. And I want to call her. And I said, God's honest truth. I said, Mr. President, the only person who speaks more than you do is my mother. And I would not advise you and Madeline Israel of Phoenix, Arizona, to get on the telephone, because that will be the longest conversation in the history of the White House switchboard. And he laughed and he said, give me the number. And without asking an assistant or anybody outside, he punched in the number, held the phone to his ear, and a few seconds passed, and he said, Mrs. Israel, this is Joe Biden. And then he had a quizzical look, his eyebrows raised. And he said, hello? No, this is Joe Biden. And he got hysterical. And he said, she thought this was a robocall. She thought I was an automated call. And then he got back on, and he spent 20 minutes with her talking about the difficulties and the challenges that she would face. Now, that by itself would have been something remarkable. But here's the postscript to that story. Every week I religiously called and still call my mom in Phoenix. Every Sunday I call my mom. And she was so proud of that call from Joe Biden. Every time I called, she would remind me about that time, Joe called. Not the vice president, by the way, Joe or Joey called me. And this went on for months and months. And then the following January, my dad was still with us. It was election year, so it was January 2012. I was talking to my mom. It was the day after New Year's, so I called to wish her a happy New Year. And she said, Joey called. And I said, Mom, I know. I was there. It was a long time ago. And this is what she said. Oh, no, Steve. He called yesterday on New Year's Eve to see how I was doing. Now, this is why that story is so poignant. Those of you who are in politics know that by all the rules of politics, Biden should have called me up and said, hey, I'm calling your mom, right? Get a little bit of attention to it. Maybe let me know that he was thinking about her. But he didn't do it because he wasn't concerned about me. He was concerned about my mom. He didn't do it to grandstand or to get points. He did it because it was the right thing to do. And he called her once after that when my dad died, and I didn't know he called. That is the mark of character and decency. Issues are important. There's no question about it. Where candidates stand is important, but how they feel, to me, is fundamental. It is a value. And that's why I would walk on hot coals for Joe Biden. I established a relationship with him, and not just a professional relationship, but a friendship where we talked frequently, and he invited me to breakfast. And I said to him, I was one of the people trying to convince him to run for president, and he didn't want to do it. And I said, Joe, I will do whatever it takes, whatever you want me to do, I'm in, and I'll get other people in. He didn't want to do it. Now, what made him do it finally? What made him do it was something that horrific moment in August. We're about to commemorate the anniversary where neo-Nazis marched in Charlottesville. And he saw swastika flags. And he saw a woman murdered. And he saw a president of the United States who said there are fine people on both sides. There are not fine people on both sides, folks. You know it and I know it. And that's when he decided to make a very significant sacrifice and to run again, or to run for president of the United States and to run for office again. When he had determined he was just going to live the rest of his life teaching and working on his foundation. And that's why I'm here tonight. Anything that can help Joe Biden, I'm willing to do. Now, let me just talk about an issue and then I'll wrap up just by talking about the president. The issue that Biden and I really focused on together, the issue that really brought us together, was his relentless pursuit of rebuilding a middle class. I never pretended to be the smartest member of Congress, although the competition wasn't always that stiff, but I know my history. You see all these history books behind me. I know my history. And you read any history of any great civilization, and you know where that history tends to end? Civilization begins to decline when they lose their middle class. When you have a much bigger population of very wealthy and a much bigger population of very poor, and there's no middle, you lose your national cohesion, you lose your social cohesion, you lose your sense of fairness, you lose your sense of equality, you lose your economy, you lose your country. And that is what is happening to the United States now. And so I want a president who's going to wake up every morning thinking about how you rebuild the middle class and go to bed every night thinking about how you rebuild the middle class. And the middle class and its reconstruction is vitally important to our region. I want to go back to the days of mobility, where if you were very poor, you became less poor. And if you were in the lower middle class, you became comfortably in the middle class. And if you were in the upper middle class, you became affluent. And if you were very rich, you were a little richer. That's fine with me. But everybody moved up a step. Instead, under this president and under Republican policies, mostly everybody's getting squashed except for a percentage of the 1%. And my final point, and then we'll open it up to questions. And I'm not sure what your time frame is. I can.
We have all day as long as you're willing to stay.
I maybe another 10, 15 minutes before I have to sign off. So let me make this final point. I believe that the work that you guys are doing is more important than you may think. And here's why. Joe Biden said he got into this race because it's a campaign for the soul of America. And he's right, the soul of America. And the soulless president that we now have sitting in the White House will do everything he can to invalidate this election. He is setting the stage by questioning mail-in ballots. Of course, he mails in his ballots. Safe for him to do it, but it's reckless and fraudulent for everybody else to do it. He is starting to build the case that if he loses, and I think it's going to be a close election, if he loses, that the results were fraudulent. Nancy Pelosi told me this story once that her first meeting with President Trump, after the inauguration, literally 2 days, I'm sorry. After the election, 2 days after the election, she spoke with President Trump. And he said to her, having won the election, he said, you know, I won the popular vote. And you can't try and do that to Nancy Pelosi. I mean, that's just dumb. And she said, Mr. President, that's just not true. You won the Electoral College. You lost the popular vote, but who cares? You're the president. Enjoy the moment. And he looked at her and he said, I won the popular vote. Those 3 million that Hillary got, illegals and criminals. Now, if he was willing to do that then when he won, imagine what he's going to try and do if he loses. And so for me, and I hope for you, it's not a matter of just winning. We got to win big. We have to make it unquestionable that Joe Biden won this election. Now, folks, I'm sorry to tell you, having analyzed it up and down and sideways, this thing's going to narrow. It's going to tighten. President's going to, his whole message is going to be, I know you loathe me, but you must fear them. And that's what he's doing around these protests, which means we have, whatever we're doing now, we've got to do more. Whatever we're messaging, however we mobilize, whatever we're chipping in, whether it's $1 or $3 or more, we've got to do more than that because Joe Biden has to win by more than would ordinarily be expected. People say, in my line of work, people say, all you need is 271 electoral votes. No. He needs more than that, or else we're looking at a very unstable, volatile, and dangerous November and December. I'm not sure we're going to know who wins until all the absentee ballots are counted, and that might take us to December. And so I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'm going to tell the Biden folks that that we were together. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the work that you're doing, and ask you to please do even more than you're doing. Whatever you can think of that will help add votes to Joe Biden, please get it done.
If you have ideas, we'd love to hear them.
I'm sorry?
If you have ideas, we would love to hear them and draw on your expertise of running for office successfully. I didn't have that luck, but I have to say, you brought me to tears. That was a incredibly touching story. What I got involved in politics my first time around because of Obama. I was very pregnant for his first election, but I decided his re-election I was going to be there. And that was one of the.
Was that your child that I saw in the?
That was my youngest. I have 4 boys. I kept trying for a girl. We did not succeed. But my oldest was born 2008, right after the first election. But the second election rolled around. I didn't have health insurance, and I didn't know if I had breast cancer. Nobody would touch me. And so his first election came around. I didn't get to participate, but I did donate. So I got an email asking if you had a healthcare story, please share one. And I had several because I was on and off of insurance. And I honestly expected someone, because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, I had a newborn baby, I was tired, I was cranky, and I just let someone have it. I don't even know how coherent the letter was. I was a sleep-deprived mom. But it was one of the 10 that he read in office. They went through the New York City DCCC, and then was one of the 10 that was chosen for him to read at night. And I will never forget the relief I felt, the acknowledgement that the President of the United States, who I've never met, but yet I absolutely adore. I adore him and Michelle as though they're family. That he heard our story, that, what it was like for my family, despite the fact that, yes, I'm in New York. As far as states go, it's as far as I'm concerned, the best to live in, but it's still not perfect. And it's that validation, even that Joe gave you, that just, even though there's some things about politics you hate, it gives you reason to keep battling. And I'm sure there's many more where that story came from, but you gave me chills. And it's just moments like that that humanizes or sometimes very inhumane systems. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that was very, very personal. You're an incredible storyteller.
Thank you, Leanne. Do you want to open it up to questions?
Sure.
Absolutely.
The way we've been doing this to help people out is we've been taking them through the chat, and Vincent is great at hosting the chat questions. So I'm going to hand the floor over to him.
Okay, Vincent.
All right. So just go ahead and pop your questions in the chat, and I will read them out. And we already have one. So from Jennifer McGarry, who is wonderful, and she's with the North Brookhaven Democratic Club as well, an organization that if you're in North Brookhaven, I'll recommend that you look into because it's fantastic. She says, provided we have a win, a big win, Do you have any hopes that the Republicans that are in a position to hold him to account will finally do so and make him accept the results and leave, or no chance of that?
It's a very good question, Jennifer. It depends on what happens to the down ballot Republicans. If they continue to calculate that their survival depends on President Trump, they will continue to break every rule in the book. They will side with him in what will be a constitutional crisis. They will disregard fact and create their own alternative reality. If they are clobbered in the election down ballot, so if the Democrats add a significant number of seats to the House and they win the Senate, and those Republicans are now relieved of the burden of Donald Trump, then I believe they will do the right thing and stand up for the Constitution and not for Donald Trump. I speak to Republicans almost, I don't want to say on a daily basis, but at least a couple times a week, Republican members of the House, incumbents. And what they tell me on private calls and what they then say back home in their districts is day and night. They loathe him. They think he's crazy. They say he's deranged. They say he's dangerous. But they will not separate themselves from him publicly because they're afraid that he'll tweet against them, engineer a primary against them, or they're going to lose their Republican base at home and there aren't enough moderate Republicans to get them elected. So they are stuck with him. It's going to take the election to unstick him and to stand up for the Constitution and the results of the election, assuming that Biden wins. You're seeing, I'll just say one more thing on this, you're beginning to see the ice breaking, but it's fascinating to see the response of Republicans to a Republican who stands up for principles. So for example, Congresswoman Cheney, the daughter of Dick Cheney, who is as far to the right as any human being can be, maybe even further to the right than her father, which is hard to do, she criticized President Trump for his foreign policy. She, I believe, expressed concern for the fact that the Russians put a bounty on the lives of our troops. And the president said nothing about it. And to this day hasn't said anything about it. And there was a meeting of the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives either yesterday or the day before, and she was attacked by Republicans for expressing her disagreement with Donald Trump on foreign policy. So that's the climate that they are in. And it's going to take a complete defeat by Donald Trump at the polls for those down ballot Republicans to turn on him and turn back to democratic norms and the Constitution.
So we have two more questions here, one of which sort of bounces off this one, so I'll go to that one first, from Matthew Clarine. How well do you believe President Biden could work with a Republican Senate majority if that becomes the case?
Another great question. And I think that the answer is similar to the one I just gave you. If Republicans make the calculation that supporting Joe Biden loses the Republican base, diminishes the cohesion of the Republican Party, and rewards Biden on policy, the honeymoon will be over before it began. Remember Mitch McConnell, the first thing he said when Biden was elected, remember what he said? He said, our first obligation is to make sure he's not reelected. And they stopped him on everything, including a Supreme Court justice, including even a vote on a Supreme Court justice. And so if they have the same calculation that Biden's success is their challenge, then I don't anticipate that they will work with him at all, which is why it's so vitally important that we also support, as Leanne said, Democratic candidates for the Senate. Now, I just tweeted, if you go to my Twitter account, it's @RepSteveIsrael. I just tweeted a report that just came over the political wires from the Cook Political Report saying that they've just upgraded their forecast to a Democratic majority in the Senate. That just happened about a half an hour ago. So if you go to @RepSteveIsrael, you can actually click on the report. And I can tell you that the Republicans that I talk to they've already calculated There's no way they're going to take back the House. There's a 50-50 chance in their view that they're going to lose the Senate. And they don't see a path for Donald Trump if he continues to behave the way he's behaving. Take a couple more questions. I'm good until 7:45. I don't know about you guys.
Great. So we have time for like 2 or 3 then.
Okay.
Charles Briscoe asks, how would you recommend convincing some people who are interested in voting third party to vote for Biden, or at least consider voting for Biden? Because he unfortunately sees too many voters that believe there isn't a real difference between Biden and Trump.
I mean, I have a hard time understanding how anybody couldn't see the contrast. So I'm not sure how I would answer the question. I mean, there's, you know, to suggest that there's no real difference between Biden and Trump, you know, in what respect? In policy, Biden will rejoin the Paris Accords and return us to an aggressive response to climate change. Donald Trump will continue to undo every single environmental gain that we've had since the Nixon administration. Joe Biden, to the point that Vincent made earlier, will return us to the days where the rest of the world looked to us for leadership, where we set the agenda for human rights, for equity, for diplomacy. And Donald Trump will just continue to scuttle the State Department and turn his back on our long-held alliances. On the economy, Joe Biden will pass tax cuts to rebuild the middle class. Donald Trump has said he doesn't believe in that. He believes that the rich should get tax cuts and it will somehow flow down. It will find its way to the middle class. On Black Lives Matter, Joe Biden was out there within 24 hours on his knees with a mask on, partnering with protesters. Donald Trump is sending federal agents in unmarked cars without name insignias to beat people up. So I don't know, maybe I just wrote the script for you for when somebody says there's no difference between the two.
I definitely agree that it's kind of baffling that is a perception people have, just for all the reasons you said. So this is an interesting question from Antonio Bavero. What is the most effective strategy to mobilize and win voters for Joe in battleground states? Something like a Bush 04 model, mobilizing your base partisans?
Wow.
Or like a Clinton 96 model by getting independent, smaller issues?
Wow, that's a great question. Who asked it? I'm sorry.
Antonio Bavero.
Antonio, what a good question, man. So look, this is going to get a little granular, but I think it's really important for us all to understand. This is not going to be a national election. This is going to be an election in 8 battleground states and maybe 30 counties in those battleground states. In New York, if this pen holder was running against Donald Trump, the pen holder would win. Same for California. In Alabama and Mississippi, if this pen holder was running against Joe Biden, the pen holder would win. We are as polarized and as partisan and as tribal as we've ever been, which means that this election rests. So I call this my formula. Here's the famous Steve Israel formula. I've used it on MSNBC. It's 10, 8, 15. I'm sorry, no, 10, 8, 30. Okay, so the first 10 is 10% of the population is undecided at this point. 90% is locked in. 90% of the electorate's either voting for Trump or Biden. Okay, so that's 10, maybe 15. 8 is the number of states that can swing either way. And so obviously it's Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Florida, Arizona, Ohio. I may have missed one, but you get it. And within those 8 states, there are about 30 counties that can swing each way. And so folks, whoever wins Kenosha County, Wisconsin, will win the presidency. Why do I say that? Because Obama-Biden won Kenosha County in southern Wisconsin in 08 and 12. Hillary Clinton lost Kenosha by a percentage. And because she lost Kenosha by a percentage, she lost Wisconsin. And that was all, and that was it. In Pennsylvania, you got to win Erie County. Whoever wins Erie wins Pennsylvania. And so the model is more like the Clinton model, which is you've got to win. You can't take your base for granted. You got to work the base, bring them in, get the base. But you also have to appeal to crossover voters in those more moderate swing counties in those battleground states. Now, right now, Biden is doing exceptionally well in those counties and in those states. Why? A perfect storm of COVID and Black Lives Matter. Those two things have resulted in an erosion experienced by Trump, first by suburban women in those battleground counties, then by non-college educated white women. They started moving towards Biden. And just over the past 2 weeks, believe it or not, non-college educated men started to erode in the Trump electoral model. He has no path without those three segments of the electorate. There's no path. Biden has to continue to expand among those segments of the electorate and deny Trump a way to get them back.
Thank you so much. So this is pretty much up to the 7:45. So everyone who answered their question, sorry, I couldn't.
Let's take one more.
One more?
Yeah, one more from a.
All right.
Let's make it gender equal, though. We just heard from a gentleman. Let's hear from a woman.
Steve, Jerry.
Okay, so
hi, Jerry. I see you.
So,
how are you, old friend?
Is there a program in the works for what they're going to try to do with to save Social Security, or is it too soon?
Look, the policy, the Biden policy team is working on any number of economic issues and retirement issues, but I'm not familiar with it right now, Jerry. When I find out, I'll let you know.
Is there a phone number I can reach you at?
No, you can email me though. I've stopped answering my cell phone actually, so you can email me at repsteveisrael@gmail.com.
I'm sorry?
repsteveisrael@gmail.com. Natalie is going to kill me for giving out the email. Okay, let's take one of the women who are on. Okay.
So Diane DeVita asked, considering all the new challenges in reaching voters with the pandemic, how do we reach those battleground states without boots on the ground? What can the Biden campaign do, and what are they doing?
What a great question. Actually, before I answer it, it gives me an opportunity to do a commercial so that you guys can participate in conferences where you can hear all about this, and it doesn't cost you a cent. I now run the Cornell University Institute of Politics and Global Affairs. We're based on Long Island, and we do these conferences. We had Nancy Pelosi. We also had Reince Priebus. We have Adam Schiff frequently. We just had Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana. We've done a series of classes, basically, on the presidential election through eCornell, and we just had a conversation answering that question. So how can candidates break through in a virtual environment? And so if you, Natalie, can you unmute yourself? Is that possible? And give the Cornell website address?
Absolutely. So you can see all of our upcoming programs. It's iopga.cornell.edu. And also, if you wanted to Google the Institute of Politics at Cornell, that will come up as well. But the email, the website address is iopga.cornell.edu.
So you can really tune into these things because we answer questions like that. I just had David Axelrod and Congressman Tom Davis, a Republican. I had Robbie Mook and Sean Spicer on last week talking about the specific answers to your question. How do you break through? The answer is this. First of all, we're not quite sure. We have a sense, but we're not positive what the COVID environment is going to be like as we get closer to the election. The assumption is that you can't knock on doors. You can't do the standard canvassing and ground mobilizing that we're all used to, that I know Leanne did when she ran in Islip. And so it's going to have to be done in two platforms. One, more television. And so people who are sitting at home watching television are going to see more ads. I mean, I was just sitting and watching my favorite show, Dr. Pimple Popper. I don't know why I love that show, but I was watching it and I saw two Joe Biden ads. And my wife said, Why is Biden advertising in New York? I said, I don't know, but I'm glad to see him. So you're going to see more television, and then you're going to see more creative use of social media. I'm concerned about social media. I'm concerned that the message with deep fakes and the exploitation of social media, foreign intrusions into social media, and how easily manipulated it is. I'm concerned about where that lands. I will leave you by commending a book to your attention if you really want to understand what is happening with respect to social media's influence on electorates, not only in the US, but around the world. The book is called This Is Not Propaganda. This Is Not Propaganda. And it came out about a year ago. It's really good inside look at what's happening. I just saw a quick response that television is more effective. Actually, the most effective persuasion in politics is friend to friend. It is the most effective form. It's somebody saying, look, I know you voted for Trump. I did it too. I think I made a mistake. It's okay to change your mind. Go see the Lincoln Project. Check out the Lincoln Project, the ad they did that said, it's okay to change your mind. We did. It's just Republican Trump voters talking to camera saying, I believed in him. I made a mistake. I can't make that mistake twice. That is very, very effective. So bottom line, in this COVID environment, both campaigns are going to have to find a way of reaffirming their base, keeping faith and affinity with their base, and at the same time, bringing in those swing voters. Finally, I know I said finally 3 finalities ago, but I'm a political junkie. The real model here is the 2018 House midterm election, which made Nancy Pelosi Speaker. How did she become Speaker? She had it by doubling down on progressive values with the base, but also running more moderate candidates in Republican districts who were able to get those swing voters and the base. That's what made Nancy Pelosi Speaker of the House. That's what will make Joe Biden President of the United States and Chuck Schumer the Senate Majority Leader. And then we're in for a beautiful 4 and who knows, maybe 8 years. So guys, thank you for everything you've done. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. I've got to cut out, but I'm available anytime.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We'll be emailing you.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Yep.
Everybody.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Natalie, if I could get your help, I'd really appreciate it. So I'll email you. Thank you so much for your help.
Feel free to email me.
Thank you.
Thank
It's a
you,
pleasure
Natalie.
meeting you.
Thank you, Congressman Israel.
Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, I don't know
All
about you
right.
guys, but that made my night.
that Joe Biden story was it. That was a real tearjerker. Yeah, that was definitely. And that's the kind of,
I heard that story before about Joe Biden, and it
I'm
lost
sorry,
you
Jill.
there,
I
Jill.
think we
Sorry, I think
lost you.
you're breaking up a little bit. But so basically, at this point, there's usually a few ways we go. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to go do a brief little overview of where we're at with Suffolk for Biden, some of the initiatives we're undertaking, what you can do to get involved. Then I want to do a little exercise with you all that we've done before, but that I think is always a fun way to sort of connect and engage with each other. Yeah, Jill, I think your phone's a little, it's breaking up too much, and I think you might be driving, so I think that's probably why you probably have a weak connection. But so where we're at as a group, we have one main means of voter contact at this point, and that's phone banking. Not the best one. It's of all the methods, and I've done some poli-sci research on this, it's the least effective. But in this pandemic situation, it's what we have right now. So before I talk about our specific phone banking opportunities, I want to address postcards, because that has been a high demand item, and text banking, another high demand item. They are coming, I promise you. Me and Leanne have been talking with the New York for Biden leadership at the state level, and they are planning both postcards to voters and text banking rollouts. So we don't have those yet at this point, but they are coming. I think the tentative date, which I can't give you any real assurances on, but that is when we hope to have at least text banking or postcards starting up, is about August 1st. So I don't know when exactly they're coming, but they are coming. So you can get excited for that because I know that a lot of you are big fans of postcards, and I know that text banking is a really easy way to volunteer, especially on the side while you're doing other things. But phone banking, that's our main initiative right now. Currently, every week, we meet at Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. to make calls for Joe. It's great supporter list right now, which is a great way to get started making calls. Typically, when you get close to election, you're calling independents, you're calling swing voters, and it's tough. You're talking to people who really don't want to talk to you. You're hitting people who are, oftentimes you'll hit people who are going to be supporting the president, and then you have a sort of conflict and a more hostile conversation. Right now, we're just doing what we call supporter check-in calls. We're talking to people that we think are our supporters so we can make sure they are supporters and try to get them involved in volunteering in their swing states. So when you're making these calls, you're going to get a really favorable list, and you're going to have a better experience. So Tuesdays, 6:30 p.m. is our main call time. We have one coming up, of course, Tuesday, 6:30 of next week. I'm going to put a link to it in the chat right now, the Zoom link. You can register. You obviously will also get this link via the newsletter and in the Facebook group. But I know that Tuesday at 6:30 is not always a great time for all of you. And it's not necessarily a fantastic time for me either. So one of the things we're looking to do is to expand out our time slots. We did a little bit of a poll in the Facebook group over what times are best for people. And the time that we seem to be gravitating towards is Sunday afternoons. So it looks like, not next week, but the following week, I'm going to be launching up a Sunday 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m. phone bank. So I'm not 100% on all the details of that. It might shift slightly, but that is what we're looking at, and details will be forthcoming. So if you can't typically make our Tuesday 6:30 phone bank, that's another opportunity for you. And as we get closer to the election, the hope is that we'll be having phone banks, nearly every day to make sure that Joe gets elected. 1 second, sorry. Okay, so that is our main initiative right now, is this phone banking. It's a pretty fun and effective conversations because they are supporter calls. We've had a great deal of people come out to them, and we've been very successful. I know we made almost 700 calls last Tuesday, which is our biggest total as a group in one session yet, because that is a very high number. Now, a side benefit of making calls is that I will mail you a free Joe Biden sticker. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jill, could you mute your microphone? I'm sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. There's a little bit of interference there, but what was I saying? So I will mail you a free sticker. I usually have them next to me, but I have one on my wall. This one is a Joe Biden bumper sticker. It is wonderful. That is courtesy of Christian Alfarno from the Huntington Town Democratic Committee. He is wonderful, and he's a coordinator for us out of Huntington. He picked up hundreds of these stickers, sent a number of them to me, and I've been sending them out. I just sent out 20 2 days ago, and I have 8 more to send out today. I'm going to go to the post office. They're great, and all you really have to do to get this wonderful free sticker is come to one of my phone banks, make a few calls, give me your address at the end, and I'll send you a sticker. It's a great way to show your support because this is a conversation I was having with someone from Charlottesville, Virginia the other day, the outskirts of Charlottesville. They were saying, after the awful situation in Charlottesville, they put a pride flag on their house, and it caused all sorts of neighborhood tension. And that was the extent of the story. But the sidetrack was that back in 2008, they had been their county's coordinator in a very conservative area for Barack Obama. And they had this massive fight over yard signs and stickers and wanting them from the campaign, but not being able to get them because they didn't prioritize that. And it was all sorts of drama. Eventually, after having it spill into local news, the Fairfax County, which is a more blue county in Virginia, Democrats sent them a bunch of signs and a bunch of stickers. And they put them all up around town, signs on lawns, stickers on cars. And the amount of volunteer work in that county for Barack Obama tripled overnight. And they cut the margins for Republicans significantly. And Virginia was a very, very close swing state in 2008, and Barack Obama barely won it. Why did it cut? Why did so many people get enthusiastic? Because when you see your neighbors with yard signs, and you see your neighbors with stickers, and you see they're also supporting this Democratic candidate, you're not alone. You get enthusiastic, you get enthused. But it's so important to be visible about our support for Joe. And, a little bumper sticker isn't the most visible thing we have, but it's what we have right now. And it's something you can put in your car, put on your laptop, put in your water bottle, and show your support, and let your neighbors and your friends and your colleagues know that, you're not alone in being a Democrat in Suffolk County, and you're not alone in supporting Joe. So that's, I'm a big fan of the stickers, and I will send you one free of charge if you come make a few calls this Tuesday. And again, the The link is in the chat to make calls for this Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. And yeah, I really encourage you all to come. So, and Jennifer said that she gets honks and thumbs up because of mine. I love that. Yeah, I've had one on my mother's car for like a month now. We've gotten some enthusiasm as well. One or two middle fingers, but you know, it's a mixed bag. Yeah. So after my long little rant about the wonders of phone banking, a little exercise that we've done before and that I want to do again, because I think it's a great way to sort of build community, is to talk a little bit about why we're here today. It is almost 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night. We all have things we could be doing. I could be watching Netflix. You could be, you know, hanging out with your kids, whatever. But you've all chosen to come here today and sit through this meeting and hear from me and hear from Congressman Israel and hear from Leanne and Donovan. And that's because we want Joe to get elected. So what is it for you that is your greatest motivator in supporting Joe and taking the time out of your day to come here? What motivates you this election? And you can just sort of unmute your mic and say your piece if you want to participate.
Okay, for me, it is absolutely essential that we have Joe Biden because of COVID. And the healthcare is such a critical issue this year that I cannot think of anybody who is not interested in health and not interested in staying alive and would not vote for Joe Biden. I'm talking to my Republican friends around that for this election, vote for Joe Biden. You can next election vote for anyone you like. But this election, vote for Joe Biden because you and I have got to stay alive, got to stay healthy. What can be more important than that? And there is no doubt in anybody's mind that the Democrats are more interested in healthcare and spreading out healthcare than the Republicans. And that's why I want to vote for Joe Biden.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And that's definitely a strong motivator for a lot of us, just, you know, both basic healthcare and just because, you know, this pandemic. And we certainly have seen a vacuum of leadership from the White House. He certainly hasn't handled it well, as proven by our surge in cases continuing. And I'm frankly not that optimistic that we're going to get this under control if this man remains in the White House. However, I'm more than confident in Joe's ability to handle this properly. Does anyone else want to give a little note on why they're coming out for Joe today?
Is there any plan to do something in the other states, like Pennsylvania and stuff like that?
Yeah, so all of our phone banks go into swing states. So we don't call to New York, we call to Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Florida. So everything we do is directed towards swing states.
And where are the phone banks?
They are digital. So you sign up via the link I put in the chat. I train you on how to make calls, and you do them all from your computer and your phone.
It's just like in this setting. We explain to you how through the Zoom, and then you make your calls, and then we meet up after to, you know, what was it like? Did you have any funny stories? Did you talk to a great voter? You know, try and imitate the field office that we're all missing.
I would like to make a statement.
Sure.
Go
Hi,
ahead.
Palat. How are you?
I
Hi.
am good. I'm working hard. The reason we need Joe Biden in this office, it is to regain America's moral authority in the world. You know, that is very important. We have lost all our integrity. So that's why we need Joe Biden. And I'll do everything to make sure that, you know, I don't feel guilty that I didn't contribute to his campaign. So that's what I'm doing.
And we really appreciate, and Talat came out to our phone bank on Tuesday, did a great job, and I appreciate your efforts. Now, Lita Smith Mine says something in the chat here. The Supreme Court, that's a strong one for me as well. You know, we got to make sure, because, you know, we have RBG, we have a lot of, you know, unfortunately, a lot of our liberal members are very elderly. And it's very important that we protect, you know, the liberal justices we have on that court and make sure that we don't lose further ground to the conservatives in the Federalist Society. Now, this is slightly off track, but I think I recognize your name, Lita, because in 2016, there was like a HuffPo article about Hillary Clinton, and it was basically saying like, I'm not ashamed to support Hillary Clinton. I am enthusiastic. And I shared it around to a bunch of people. Was that you? Because I love that article, and I thought I recognized your name from there.
That's awesome.
But
And yes,
but yeah,
RBG
and
has to survive at this point. So if we have to all jump up and down on her chest to make that happen, we have no other choice. We have to.
Okay.
Okay, so does anyone else want to share a story? And then I have a few more things to get into. All right. So at this point, one second here. Peggy Smith says, "Can we call into Georgia?" I passed that. You said I saw your Facebook comment. I passed that along up to the campaign. They're not doing calls into Georgia right now. There was actually a whole New York Times article about Democrats want the Biden campaign to be more bullish on expanding to sovereign states, and they're not, and they're being a little more cautious than they should be. So that's a sort of ongoing debate internally. But they're not doing calls into Georgia right now. That might change though, and as soon as they do, obviously we'll start doing that as well. And yeah, I think we would find a lot of grateful Georgians. So that is pretty much what I have for you tonight. Is Phone Bank Tuesday 6:30. I encourage you all to come. It's a great way to get to know supporters around the country, and it's also just sort of fun to chat afterwards because sometimes we'll get some very strange people on the phone in a fun way. If you've phone banked or canvassed before, you have stories because I don't know if you guys have seen Parks and Recreation. It's a great show. But there are scenes where it's like, the town hall, and I watched this years ago, and it was like, the average citizen of Pawnee, Indiana talking about their concerns, and they're all insane and ridiculous. And if you watch that show and you're not in politics, you go, this is crazy. People aren't actually like this. No one would talk like this. As soon as you start making calls and canvassing, you learn how correct and accurate that show are because people will say the most insane things to you, and it's fun. I have a whole repertoire of ridiculous things that have been said to me, and it's a good way to sort of bond.
That viral video of that woman in Florida refusing to wear a mask because things must breathe. I mean, it's just proof of the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
But if you're not in our Facebook group, I don't know if you've seen. I missed all but one day, and that was because the congressman had passed away, and I just wanted to show some respect. Each day we have a countdown. We have 103 days to get this right. We are almost down to double digits. So now is the time because we're getting down to now or never. I know my biggest regret in 2016 was I felt like there was more I could have done and I would have done and I should have done but didn't. And I absolutely refuse to have that same gut-wrenching feeling when I'm crying myself, hopefully happy tears to bed this year compared to 4 years ago. So I beg you, please come help make a difference. You can only argue just so much on Facebook with the people that, same people day in, day out. I know it's emotionally exhausting. This is your chance to talk to new people and help get some people off the fence. Sorry for the little child in the background. So please sign up for a phone.
Yes, and get your free sticker. They're great. They're wonderful. They're nice, and they're the fun kind that you can peel right off. So if you stick it on your car, it's not like you're scraping at it in 2021. It's a good sticker. So that's pretty much the extent of what we have. We are looking to expand our phone bank dates. That'll be coming. Our main one is Tuesday, 6:30. Hope to see you all there. Text banking and postcards are coming soon to Suffolk for Biden near you. August 1st is the tentative New York for Biden date for launching that. At this point, if you guys have any questions or concerns about the group activities, any questions you have for me or Leanne that you want to share, now is the time to sort of unmute and let us know. And otherwise, we'll sort of wrap up for the evening.
Is that you have a question, Jennifer, or you're saying good night? All right, well, good night.
Alrighty. So I appreciate all of you guys coming out. Great meeting as always. Thank you for your fantastic questions. And thank you, although he's not here anymore, but thank you to Congressman Steve Israel for that his fantastic remarks, that very moving story about Joe. I appreciate every single one of you came out. I hope to see you all at the phone bank on Tuesday. I'll be there. I'll train you. I'll send you a sticker, and we'll have so much fun. The link is in the chat once again. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Have
a
great night.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night.
It's a pleasure seeing all of you.
Yes, same here. Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone.
Good night. It's good to see
Thank you so much.
Antonio.
Yeah, you too.